Schedule one time. I'm pretty sure you've probably heard this one by now. It's kind of the flavor of the month game with everybody either talking about it or playing it to some extent. So here we are, trend chasing again. So this is a game, if I recall correctly, that's made by just one dad. Good on them. I hope they're enjoying how wildly successful their games become. It's a sort of drug empire simulator game. Like, not gonna lie, when I looked at it, I believed it to be more or less the same kind of slop that appears all over Steam now. For every like 200 of them, there's usually one or two that stand out a bit and make a bit of an impact. This one, for example, and say the TCG Card Shop one, is probably the easiest ones to point out as standouts. I imagine you've probably seen the games that look incredibly similar to them that appeared at roughly the same time, but typically after. These types of games tend to follow like a similar formula of an interesting theme, then it's marked with a really, really repetitive loop. You could say that once you've played 2 hours or so, you've then seen all that there is to see. That's mainly cause without the loop, it reveals just how shallow the games tend to be. TCG's sole loop was to just sell better cards, level up the store, and then unlock and sell better cards as well as the other merch. But its gimmick was that people enjoyed the pack opening side of it, collecting the cards and typically modding the game so it had a more well known card game IP as its artworks. Schedule 1 kind of follows this formula a bit, although it has a lot of its own flair and charm to it. Starting off, the game gives you a rather bare bones character designer and drops you off into the tutorial town. I think it tries to draw inspiration from Breaking Bad in its little tutorial with the whole RV in the desert, but in here it teaches you the basic gameplay loop. Grow product, harvest product, package the product, and then sell the product, all while keeping the police off your back. Once this little short section of the game ends, you're put into the main sandbox world. I don't know how many people like it, but I kind of like the world design. It's very simple and reminds me a lot of like voxel types of games. It doesn't need to be over the top flashy to be successful, and I find this to be quite a nice balance. The buildings and businesses themselves also feel like they have a bit of soul to them. The customers and, well, NPCs in general all work in the respective businesses that exist. You will see them leave and enter throughout the day. If you needed them for business, you could knock on the door to summon them. I think this is a nice way of hiding them so they don't like draw system resources trying to keep the NPCs rendered and moving at all times, and avoids the NPCs just standing around aimlessly not doing anything that would make the game feel stagnant. Upon doing some introduction missions, you will meet the villains of the game, a rival gang striking at you for invading their turf, forcing you to hide in what is essentially the town's outskirts. But from those outskirts, you begin the process of building your own empire. This is essentially where the loop of the game begins. You will buy your product from one of the suppliers, then grow it, harvest it, package it, and sell it. There are only two things that stop me from saying that after doing 2 hours of gameplay from this point that you've seen everything the game has to offer. Those two are the drug mixing and the drug variety. I'll end up talking about them later as I hit them, but yeah. So just like TCG and the other similar games, the game is rather strict on how time works and how leveling works. Leveling and XP is entirely based on your money earned in that day, and in order for it to process that XP, it forces you to sleep at a fixed time, 4 a.m. in this case. The time will not pass beyond this point. In a weird contrast, though, you can still perform all other activities at this point. So if a product took 2 hours in 2 in-game hours to grow or cook, and you started it at 4 a.m. in game, it would still be 4 a.m. by the time it finishes, since the time freeze doesn't impact those sort of localized process times. So once you choose to sleep, the game then calculates your earnings and then allocates your XP based on it, before then starting a new day. As you continue, the loop gradually levels up, unlocking new things for you to fiddle about with. One of the first major things you unlock is the option to have a dealer. This is based off customers rather than level. There's like a network of customers that each have their respective friends, and only by selling lots to one of the dealer or supplier's friends will you then get introduced to them. Dealers in this case is more or less like the first form of automation in the game. They sell whatever product you give them over time, and then they'll take a 20% cut for their own sake. However, once you hit Hoodlum 1, which is around an hour of gameplay, you unlock the first big thing I hinted about before, the one that changes the loop overall. And this is the ability to mix drugs. So, as you have been leveling, you've been unlocking ingredients you use to mix. You buy a mixing station from the hardware store and then mix any drug you own with any ingredient you have, and it produces a new custom drug. I really, really like this idea, to be honest. It like activates the part of my brain that wants to make the best possible combination that sells for the most money. The ingredients are kind of funny as well. Here's a pretty notable example I've had with it. Why do you, why is that sold? Why is that sold? Nah. Nah, that's too messed up. What I will say though is that it's an actual nightmare to navigate once you start the testing process. By design, it's a very overwhelming amount of information thrown at the player, because there's like 6 potential ingredients by the time you unlock mixing. It doesn't sound like a lot on its own, but these mixes can stack. So if you mixed your initial product with Cook, you could still mix it again after with any of the other 5 ingredients. Then in some cases, you can also remix it with the same ingredient further down the chain. For example, I ended up at one of the end of my streams trying to make a bulk batch of the most expensive weed I could produce at that point in time. This weed had 8 mixes in it: banana, Viagra, mouthwash, Cook, paracetamol, Cook again, donut, and another banana. This process took so long that I simply ended the stream early because I needed to mix this process in order to progress, since I wasn't selling anything at the time. And I feel like I streamed it for about 30 minutes of just solid cooking before turning it off due to me feeling it was just boring for anyone watching. And then to top it off, I finished it offline, without the stream, and it still took another 40 minutes of constant micromanaging the mixing station. This gets kinda easier once you have multiple mixing stations and some automation tools, but the other major headache is that the way the game organizes the strains. It shows it in just one big mess of a UI. Like, I'm no specialist when it comes to organizing information, but there has to be a better way than what it is now. It essentially organizes it based on when it was first produced and only in that order. So if you tested 6 ingredients and the 7th was the one that suit you best, you would then need to jump 7 places in the list to find the one you want. I wish it had a way to organize based on strain or product that came off the previously selected strain. Since as you level up and unlock more ingredients, if you want to test them on prior strains, they will have to then take spots just after your most recent mixtures, which might be on a new weed strain altogether. As a side note on the mixing thing, you might have noticed in some of the footage it changes the skills or effects of the drugs. These are like characteristics the customers might look for. They might buy more if it aligns with them or buy more frequently. They even have represented effects in game 2, which is actually kinda funny. It makes their heads grow, they might lose hair, in some cases they might even explode. There's no real reason to try to appeal to these, just make whatever is the most cost effective and profitable, because once you hand it over to a dealer, it doesn't actually matter because they'll sell it anyway. I mentioned it a bit during the mixing process, but one of the shallow elements to artificially extend the loop is that there are new strains of all the drugs. Weed, for example, has 4 variations of seeds you unlock over time. Other than base price, cost to buy, and starting effects, these things offer no real gameplay change. It's just one of the shallow ways to extend the loop a bit artificially. However, alongside the mixing station, upon hitting the rank of Hoodlum, you unlock the next big changing loop effect, and that is one of the new drugs. So, different from the strains, these are a completely new product with a completely new and separate way to cook them. As it stands, there's only 3 so far: weed, the starting drug, methamphetamine, and then cocaine. Meth is a much slower process, taking almost a full day just to create a single batch. It kind of works to its benefit, as by the time you start producing meth, you're juggling a lot already, so you get this process out of the way at the start of your day, and then it just cooks all day while you do everything else. Just to get this across though, you don't unlock it at this level exactly. You unlock the area the dealer is in, and technically you have to then progress through that customer network in order to find and unlock the new supplier. So you might end up a few levels above, but starting from Hoodlum is when you unlock the regym. From here, the loop kinda continues. Make more product, pass it off to your dealers, and then slowly the game will open up a bit more to you. You will be given a little mission to visit the 3 main scaling shops of the game. The car dealership, who lets you buy your own car. It's a bit of a cash sink in my opinion, but it's got some use cases because cars actually have inventory spaces. There's the mechanic, who can tune up or fix your car. I think he kinda acts more so like, yes, I want to change the color of the car, or maybe I've gotten my car stuck and he can, like respawn it for you. And then lastly is the retail agent, who can sell you additional properties. These can be in the form of businesses, which act as money laundering sites, and private homes, which can just be turned into more places to grow product. These new homes are much, much larger and allow for the one last big gameplay element. As soon as you hit Hoodlum 5, which is about after maybe 4 to 5 hours of gameplay, you unlock the warehouse. This is the criminal enterprise shop, selling melee weapons and guns, some specialist drug making hardware and ingredients. To be honest, now that I think about it, you have to actually hit this level before you can start actually making meth, as its core ingredients actually come from here and you can't actually get anywhere else. But lastly, you can hire workers here. These are more or less the full automation of the gameplay loop entities. They can only be assigned to the larger buildings, hence the retail agent's viability, as the bigger houses can house up to 10 workers. These workers all serve specific roles. One cleans up trash. I wouldn't actually bother with this guy. I have a gut feeling you might want to eventually have one, purely for the fact that I have a gut feeling the game will just lag itself to death if you just leave all the junk across the floors. You have your botanist, who grows your weed, and a chemist, who handles lab productions and mixing stations. Then finally the handler, who deals with moving items between shelves and stations, and packages the product as well. It's nice to just let them do their own thing, but it's so unfriendly to use properly. I have a lot of gripes with the automation. To start, it's like very, very dumb automation. It has next to no logical programming built into it. And I mean that in a sense that if I put 2 different objects on the same shelf, it wouldn't try to ask me which object to take. it would instead try to take both. And this is like really annoying to get them to do mixtures without making it a completely separate cooking line altogether. Then the more separate things you have to take into account, the more workers you then need to hire to accommodate it, etc. There is the delivery system as well, which to its credit had one extra thing I didn't think it would have, but overall it's still a bit of a linchpin of a system. So all the properties starting from, I think, the bungalow have designated loading bays, and on your phone you can order items to be delivered straight to your door. Of course, you have to pay a fixed delivery fee of like $200 extra. So if you're going to do it, you want to do it in full bulk. I would still say just run it yourself, but this is an automation tool. But the automation part doesn't really work, or well, it would work if you only used one ingredient. So like I mentioned, the handlers are somewhat dumb. They have no internal logic that you can set, so that they're only moving a specific ingredient from one shelf to one station. So if you ordered 100 bananas and 100 Viagra, they would move both to the same shelving unit. And if you're like active moving the product from that shelf to a station, they will end up mixing the wrong stuff into your cooking chain. So in my opinion, you still have to manually move the product from this melting pot of a shelf to the product specific shelves for them to move into the production lines. It's just kind of annoying since it removes the way to have your building fully run on their own without you being there, unless it's just to collect product. The one novelty I did mention though is that these delivery bays also work for your own cars too. So if you buy the van, for example, and load it up with stuff to essentially avoid the delivery fee since they're pretty much the same size, they can take the goods out of your van for you. I didn't actually think they would even do this, but it's really nice that it's there. Maybe in the future, if you're doing things that only need one ingredient, you can run more of an efficient racket out of it by just ordering the deliveries and then just having them move the stuff straight into production. There are some other annoying factors too. You can't move things between buildings. Even though you can assign a handler to a shelf in another building, they will never leave the boundaries of the one they were originally sent to. So in other words, if you have a building specifically set up to make wheat, say it's just full of botanist, you would then need to move the product over to your mixing building by hand. Then if you by any chance needed to change the routes of your handlers, good luck, because it gives you nearly no information about what they do other than list what they interact with. Say, large shelf to mixing station. Okay, which shelf? Which mixing station? It's just so frustrating to optimize when it really doesn't need to be. After this point though, the game is pretty much done. There are still like a few things for you to unlock, such as the bigger packaging machine that lets you package things in stacks of like 10s or 20s, compared to the size 5 jars or the single package bags. And the cauldron, which you unlock at Enforcer level 1, which is the machine needed for creating cocaine. Speaking of which, cocaine is the last product you will unlock, but it's so far into the end of the game that you've already probably bought or done everything else anyway. It just adds another factor of loop to retesting the ingredients, and then finding the best possible sellable drug and then selling it. There are a lot of other ranks beyond this point, but they don't actually have any unlocks. They're just kind of vanity, unless you want, the last potential dealer. But that's mainly because the game's early access. But yeah, that's more or less it as far as the game goes. I've tried to fit all my thoughts in a more progressive narrative, but there's still a bunch of things I need to mention that are standalone. So each of the machines you operate, or better way to word it, any of the processes involved in the products, have their own minigames. It's a nice touch, since a lot of the games are typically, you go there, stand, wait 5 seconds for it to do the thing, and then collect the results. I like that this one decided to add the minigames, since it gives a whole lot of extra charm, from planting the seeds and chopping the plants down, to mixing your meth mixture, and then breaking it with a hammer at the end of the cooking process. By the time you hit the automation though, these tasks have probably become really damn repetitive, and I suppose such a thing can't really be avoided either. You get the option to buy a lot of mobility things too, like the skateboards and, like I mentioned before, the cars to move across the city faster, but I never really saw a need in getting them. Cars are a bit more useful since they offer the storage slots in addition to your inventory, allowing you to carry in mass to your buildings. But the skateboard was just kind of so-so to me. I did buy the golden skateboard at the end, which was considerably faster than I thought it was going to be, but considering I spent my time playing the game in the first 3 areas, I never really needed to do massive amounts of travel because my dealers handled all the automation for me. The game isn't without its critiques though. The combat seems like a random addition. Other than customers getting angry if you don't sell them something, there's never any real encounters that require it. Not to mention there's no health bar, but there's still combat, which is weird to me. If you do get hit, your screen goes red. There's very evidently something there that keeps track of your health, but it's just not shown to the player. Remember at the start when I talked about the villains that destroy the RV? You never actually hear from them ever again. I'm willing to wager they will appear later in the game's actual development, since it's more or less an early access title. The police and some of the other items in the game are kind of irrelevant too. In the police's case, they just don't really do much of anything. And with no stamina to limit the player, you're just like significantly faster than them. They can't even keep up with you. And even if they could, you can just parkour onto a building and their AI will literally just fold like paper. In items cases though, as soon as you unlock automation, they just kind of aren't worth caring about. A slightly faster grow speed might be nice early on, but if you have someone else just growing it, it's just kinda so-so. I ended up drowning in product anyway, so having more would have ended up causing me so many issues. So in the end, I never ended up buying anything like fast growth soil or fertilizer or the grow lights. They just kinda seem like a waste of money to me. Although, looking back in the future, fertilizer might have been a lot more useful than I thought. And maybe I should have tweaked the script a bit to mention it, but fertilizer, as well as making it grow faster, increases the product quality, which is good for increasing the product standards. It means the other people in the higher areas will be more likely to buy it. Overall, the game is nice. It's just one of those games you sort of play to wind down, like a gas station simulator or power wash simulator. The game has co-op as well, which is a very nice addition, although I had no one to go through it with, but at least it has the option. It would have made like a lot of the juggling easier to manage, and to be fair, I wager it would have made for like a nice fun game for like a night or two co-op. To give the game a rating though, it's either a 6 or a 7. It's not perfect, but I am actually super optimistic about its potential, and I could easily turn around in the future and give it a 9, like when it's later on in its life cycle, when it's more feature complete. Say, with the enemy factions actually existing and having, wars between you and them, hiring security guards to patrol with your dealers to stop them being mugged, etc. Adding more quality of life improvements or addressing some of the problems I had, especially if it's the way the mixed strains are shown, would bump the score up easily too. Considering the game is being sold for like £16, which is a refreshing price after just having watched Nintendo's Direct about the Switch 2, it's 100% worth a buy. There was already one major patch that dropped as soon as I started playing, adding in a pawn shop and boutique for like random housing items. I hope the dev manages to set themselves like a good set of goals and sticks to them, Since with success usually comes a lot of noise, countless people, which after this video comes out, pretty much includes me, will voice their own opinion about how things they believe should be added or changed. But everyone knows that trying to appeal to everyone makes you end up appealing to no one. Just look at Helldivers 2 trying to balance their weapons, if you want an example of that kind of mess. But yeah, it's definitely worth it. And if you want some footage to help you make up your mind, I've uploaded all my stream VODs for my entire playthrough of the game. You can obviously just go and find that, watch it through. It's maybe about, is it 13 hours long? 14 hours long? But yeah, that's my thoughts on it. Alright, see y'all next time.
Nah, come on. Surely, right, you can do an ollie onto the bridge. No, it just eats the momentum. Why does it eat the momentum like that? How did I get the jumps going before? Am I doing it at too sharp of an angle? I might be doing it at too sharp of an angle. Oh, now we're talking. Oh my god, he's Tony Hawk? He's actually Tony Hawk.